What is going on, guys? I am back with yet another album review. It's actually been a really long time since I've reviewed new music, but I've been looking forward to this album for a while, and I wanted to put out a review sooner rather than later, so here we go. One quick thing I want to say before I start this review is go into this review open-minded and go into this album with an open mind. It is different than what you're going to expect from a metalcore-based, I'd say, band. It has some elements of rap, some elements of EDM, some elements of pop, which work pretty darn well most of the time. There are a few moments that I think the album gets a little bit repetitive or kind of loses my interest, but for the most part, 2/3 of this album are really good, and I would highly recommend listening to this, even if you're not a fan of rap or pop and you're gonna say, oh, it's bad. It's really not that bad. I know there's people going through each of the tracks on the album and just leaving the same comments saying this sucks. Don't listen to them. Go into this with an open mind. Go into this review with an open mind as well, because this is my opinion. You can have an opinion as well. That's fine. But please don't dislike this. Please don't give the band hate. It's not my fault that I like something. It's not the band's fault they liked this style. Anyway, let's get right into this review. So I'm going to go track by track on this because this is a review that I was particularly excited for. So let's do it. Bow Down is the lead single off the album, and I already did a track review of it on my channel a couple weeks ago, which you can check out. So to summarize it pretty quickly, I like the track a lot. It's one of Prevail's heaviest tracks to date. It's up there with Face Your Demons and Already Dead and some stuff like that. Really great track, really heavy breakdown, really heavy riff. I love the second verse when Eric's voice just hits like a freight train. It's crazy. Brian's cleans sound incredible on this track. You could tell his voice has really evolved and he's had some training and has really became confident in his singing abilities. Really great track. Track 2 is another single, the third one they released, I believe last week actually, Paranoid. Really great track as well. But this one blends some EDM and rap elements into it, although it is still a predominantly rock track. There are a few instances where there's some screaming, and the clean vocals are pretty great as well. I like how Eric kind of, as well as screaming, has a bit of a rap, kind of half verse or so, and then the song breaks down into this 15-second or so EDM kind of pre-chorus where there's just instrumental, like an EDM instrumental, and then it goes into the cleans with some heavies as well on the chorus. This song I actually think might have the best clean vocals on the entire album, as Brian hits some of the highest notes I've ever heard him hit in any of Prevail's music. Really great. This track's also the shortest track on the album, surprisingly, but it's one of the best, and I think it holds up really well. The next track, Every Time You Leave, which has a feature as well. I forget her name, to be honest, but this is kind of, I'd say, like a pop ballad almost. This isn't really a rock track, although there is some guitar in it, some electric guitar and some bass and whatever, but it doesn't go heavy. There's no breakdown, and Eric's not even in this track. It's just Brian and the feature. The feature actually sounds a lot like a vocalist like Kiara, if you're familiar with her, like just a typical pop female vocalist, but she brings a lot of energy to the track, and I really like that. I think her delivery is great. I think Brian's delivery is great. It's not super heavy, and it is a little bit early in the album, in my opinion, to have a pop track, but it's all right. I'll let this one pass. Track 4 is Rise Above It, which is featuring Justin Stone. Now, this is the first track on the album that I have to say I don't like. And I think it's just because of the feature. I like when Eric raps and mixes that in, and it sounds pretty consistent. But Justin Stone just feels really out of place on this. He sounds like G-Eazy. If you're familiar with G-Eazy, you know what I'm talking about. He sounds like your stereotypical white rapper and nothing more. He's really not a standout feature like the feature on the previous track. And I just think this brings the track down so much. I love rap rock. Nu metal is one of my favorite subgenres of the genre. But this doesn't work very well. It also doesn't have a lot instrumentally or anything like that, and it just doesn't really pick up for me. It just kind of drags on, and there were multiple times when I was listening to it where I was checking to see, is it almost over? This is really one of the only tracks I didn't like on the album, but I figured I'd just talk a little bit about why I don't like it, just to explain. Track 5 is Breaking Down. Breaking Down, I'd say, is probably the weakest of the 3 singles the band put out before the album's release. It has an amazing message about feeling alone and being depressed, and the video really shows how Brian's personal fight with depression that he dealt with for most of the downtime between Lifelines and now, and also before. And as somebody myself who has been dealing with depression since like 7th grade, so for me that's 6-7 years or so, it's just crazy that how realistic this is. And I always feel really passionate about tracks that talk about depression and other things like that, and I think this is a great track for doing that. Although I just think the ending 30 seconds or so just kind of drags on. I think the first half of this song is good, and then the second half just slogs on. That's that. DOA, not a lot to say about it. I didn't really care for that track either, but the album gets a lot better, track 7 on. There's just a couple tracks here at the beginning I didn't care for. DOA, I don't have much to say about. The name's cool, Dead on Arrival, you know, pretty edgy, pretty cool, but I don't really have a lot to say about the track. I didn't really care for it. Track 7, Gasoline, however, is one of my favorites on here. God, it has a lot of energy, and it also gives me vibes to one of my favorite band, actually. My favorite band of all time, Linkin Park, one of their best songs, Bleed It Out. This song is a lot like that. If you've heard Bleed It Out, you know what I'm talking about. Essentially, in that song, Mike and Chester, the 2 vocalists for Linkin Park, Mike raps on the verses, and then Chester comes in with some screaming and some heavy vocals. That's what Brian and Eric do on this track. But then the second half kind of just is a massive breakdown, and it's awesome. I really love it. This song is super explicitive, it's super gritty, it's super in your face, and I was expecting that looking at the track length. It's like, what, 2.5 minutes? So anytime a track's under 3 minutes, you just know it's going to be a banger. And boy, is this one a banger. The next track, track 8, Hurricane, is another track I loved, and this took me by surprise. It starts off with a very poppy, EDM-y kind of beginning, but then kind of transitions into a heavy rock song. Really cool. Really great blend of pop and EDM and rock. Really awesome. I was not expecting this song to pick up, and it did. It starts off with just Brian giving some cleans and over this kind of EDM kind of instrumental with some guitars in the background, but then the guitars and bass come in and the drums come in and Eric comes in, and it's really good. Really good. I'd have to say, out of every track on the album, this one is probably my favorite, just because I think it encompasses the new style I Prevail was trying to go for with this, and does the best job of it. The next track, track 9, Let Me Be Sad, is yet another track that I really like. This is a very emotion-filled ballad track where it really just speaks on loneliness and things like that, and it is very sad. Let Me Be Sad, it is very sad. But I like that. It's very emotional, and you feel that emotion. And, excuse me, doing this in one take, my bad. But I really liked how it did that. It took me again by surprise, and it had a poppy EDM kind of vibe to it, but I really liked it. I dig it. It's really cool. The next track, 10, named Low, also the name of a recent Wage War track. There's actually 2 Wage War name tracks, Deadweight and Low. Kind of just wondered that. I kind of just realized that, honestly. But I really liked Low, too. This is another song that really picks up. It's got probably some of my favorite clean vocals on here by Brian. It sounds great. Again, the song really picks up really nicely, but keeps that hard rock, but also that kind of pop EDM influence. Really great. The Goodbye interlude, it's an interlude. I don't have much to say about it. It's just kind of just skippable. If I'm going to listen to this album all the way through, which I'm definitely going to, and buy it on CD and have it digitally, I'm probably just going to skip it. It doesn't have really a lot of just really anything to me. It's just kind of vocals and a kind of dull instrumental, and it doesn't do a lot. But the following track, 12, Deadweight, has great instrumentals. In fact, if you're looking for my favorite riff on the in terms of my favorite riff on the album, this one has it. Deadweight has a very punchy, very raw riff that just smacks you right as you start the track. And the vocals are really great. This is a pretty consistent rock track. There's not a lot of EDM or pop in it. It's just pretty much rock all the way through. So if you're a fan of that style, it's really good. If I were to compare it to a track off Lifelines or the Heart v Mind EP, I'd compare it to something like The Enemy or something like Rise. Maybe not The Enemy, but something like Rise. You know what I mean? But more adult. Rise kind of came off to me as a little bit corny lyrically. This is more mature, and this whole album is more mature. And then the final track, I Don't Belong Here, is a very emotion-filled ballad with acoustic guitars and a really nice solo. This has the album's, I think, lone solo. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is really the only track with a solo, and it's a good solo. Brian's vocal delivery is excellent on here. Probably my second favorite track in terms of vocals after Paranoid. And I just really like how it ends with a very slow, very somber acoustic track. A lot of really great albums do that, and that's what I was expecting this to end with. Yeah, wow. So all in all, this is a really solid album. I will say, like I said, out of it, there's probably, let me look at the track list actually. 1, 2, 3, 4 tracks that I would say aren't that good. But take those out of the equation, there's 9 tracks that I thought were really great on here. So if we equate that in, I'd give this album a 7.5 out of 10. And I think that's a really fair rating. It didn't blow me away, but this was definitely an improvement over Lifelines. I liked Lifelines, but a lot of it felt very hokey and very cheesy. Tracks like One More Time, Stuck in Your Head, and Rise, and even Already Dead, I just feel like looking back at them, they're very pop punky, and I just don't think I Prevail even really wanted to go that direction, to be honest, and they did. And yeah, they really pale in comparison to the EP, which is excellent, and this album. And in terms of the EP, I like the EP, the Heart v Mind EP, a little bit better than this. It's definitely heavier, but this is really good. This is what I was expecting from I Prevail, and this blew me away. Really good album. Like I said, there's a few things in it that I didn't care for, and I don't want to be too nitpicky about things. But I think if you go into this album, voice crack, jeez. I think if you go into this album with an open mind, and you really listen to the words and the instrumentals and you take it in, you're going to really love it. I had a great listening experience. I loved it. This album isn't too long either. It's only 41 minutes, so you can get through it fairly quickly. And I definitely will be returning to more than half of this album, like, instantly. Like, once I get home and I finish and I upload this, I'm going to listen to Gasoline, like, over and over again. That track's a banger. It slaps. Really liked this album. If you're going to complain and say, it's pop, I didn't like it, well, go listen to Beartooth. Go listen to Wage War. Listen to these bands that are still really heavy. Even Wage War is less heavy as they used to be, but still. Listen to those bands. All right, I Prevail is different. If they want to experiment, go ahead. Just give this a chance is really all I'm saying. Just don't expect it to be a super heavy album, but don't expect it to be a rap pop album, because it's not. It's a rock album. It's classified as a rock album, and it's a great rock album. And yeah, that's really all I have. So if you enjoyed this review, sorry for rambling at times and the lack of editing. I just kind of wanted to have a first take style review. I don't usually do that. But if you like this, check out my other reviews. I did a review of Lifelines. I will say I didn't, back then I liked the album more. Now as time has passed, I don't like it as much. I'm going to do a review of the band's EP, which I haven't yet. I own both on CD. I might actually do that in my car, just so it's there. But I'm really, really excited to go back and listen to these tracks again. And this is a great album this early in the year, and I'm super stoked for future albums in the rock world this year. Slipknot, really psyched. I'm going to be putting out a lot more new music reviews in this coming year in 2019. I want to review Slipknot's album, Wage War's album. If Tool puts out an album, I'll review their album. Really any prominent rock release, expect me to review it. Really looking forward to some stuff later this year. But this was a great album. Support I Prevail. Listen to their music. I'd highly recommend it. Have a great day. And remember, if to just subscribe, tell your friends, like the video, share if you can. That's really all I got. Peace.